That'll be exciting.
I'm rooting for them, by the way. I hate the Dodgers.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are live. Hello again to all the boys and girls out there in YouTube land watching. John and Nelly of George Beer Reviews back at you this Saturday morning with first and probably only edition of Seltzer Saturday. And joining me this morning, we have Michael Kormeroff, the Seltzer Slammer. He's up there in Brooklyn.
Hello, John.
Thanks for joining me, Michael. So you got a seltzer a while back, and we've been talking about doing this for a while. So what seltzer do you have, and how did you acquire it?
Okay, this is called Bud Light Seltzer. It's a 5% black cherry edition at 100 calories. This was left at the beach club when the season ended. My cabana mate, 5-barrel Phil, left it in the refrigerator, and when we cleaned out, it was there. And look, I'm not anybody who's turning their way something to try it. I've never tried a hard seltzer, so I don't have any idea what it's going to be like. Give it a shot, check it out, see what I think. Give it a fair chance.
We got Eclipse Brewing in the house. Good morning to you. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you as well, Steve. Okay. So I have got one that I have not tried before, so this will be a first for me. I've had a lot of the seltzers, or tried a lot of the different seltzers over the past year or so. I have got the new Coors Seltzer. This is their lemon lime variant, 4.5% alcohol and 90 calories, so a little bit lighter. All of these seltzer products are pretty light, and they're marketed towards people that are looking for a light alcoholic beverage. And both of these would definitely qualify. And not only macro, these are both macros, but every single craft brewery around here is also making their own version of a seltzer. So these things are blowing up. I mean, they're everywhere. Everybody's making one. So if you're having trouble finding a seltzer, you're obviously not looking hard enough, because they are everywhere. So we'll go ahead and get into this. Michael, I'm going to let you go first. This is your first ever seltzer, so
here it goes.
Interested to see what you think.
I am going to pour it.
All right.
Well, there are no artificial colors in it. So it's black cherry, but it looks like regular seltzer. If you didn't know differently, you wouldn't know what it was.
Right.
It looks like seltzer. Let me check the nose. Okay, the nose is straight black cherry. So it doesn't smell artificial either. It smells like what you normally smell in black cherry soda.
Okay.
But so of course, the key factor is going to be the taste, though, because the smell, I guess, the nose you could duplicate without too much trouble. But it smells like black cherry soda nose. Well, John, cheers. Here we go.
Cheers.
It's actually not bad. Okay. The cherry tastes like cherry soda too. So it's not like it's tastes artificially flavored. Now, it doesn't have the sweetness that you'd have in cherry soda because it's only 100 calories. I'm sure a 12-ounce can of cherry soda has to be a couple of hundred calories because of the sugar, either cane sugar or whatever, sugar they use for it. So this doesn't have that high level of sugar in it. But otherwise, it's fine. It's very light. It's on the watery side, but what do you expect seltzer to taste like? It's going to be watery because that's what it is, water and carbonated, however they do it with carbon dioxide, whatever they put in it. So that part of it's okay.
So being as light as it is without anything to really mask any bad qualities, and of course the alcohol, are you getting any off flavors, any alcohol, anything weird with it that lets you know that it's not just a regular seltzer?
No, and as a matter of fact, if you didn't tell me that there was alcohol in here, I couldn't tell, which I mean has to raise it very high in my ratings.
Right.
Because the fact that you could give me a glass of seltzer and say, here it is, I wouldn't be able to tell because whatever is in the black cherry taste is covering the alcohol. So the alcohol is very well masked. Admittedly, it's only 5%, but that 5% is still 5%. How much is regular Bud Light? 4.2, 4.4, whatever it
4.2.
is.
Yeah, so it's
So
actually
this to me tastes like less alcohol than regular Bud Light. If I'm comparing it, I've had Bud Light. This tastes like it's less than Bud Light. So they're doing a good job of masking the alcohol to me.
right.
I have to
Yeah,
say,
mine is very similar. For a little lighter, 4.5%, and 90 calories. And I love how they put the ingredients on the label. I think yours has it on there too. It's very simple. It says water, cane sugar, yeast, citric acid, sodium citrate, and natural flavors. Um, so with mine, the citric acid is kind of giving it, I think that the lemon lime, it's got that tartness. Much like you would get with like a Sprite or a 7-Up, it's got a very similar taste profile to that, just a lot lighter and less sweet because it doesn't have a ton of sugar in it. Obviously, only 90 calories. There's no artificial flavor notes with mine either. It tastes very natural. It's very, very prickly, definitely high on the carbonation, just like you would expect with a seltzer water. There's no weird chalky aftertaste that you get with some. Like I've had Truly and White Claw, and I find that those have a weird chalky taste to them, and the alcohol's not super well masked with those either, I find. This one, no alcohol presence. You could give it to a child and they would just think it's regular old seltzer water. There's no indication that this is even an alcoholic beverage, which job well done, Coors, but be careful, parents with your kids, because this stuff is like, you would never know.
Well, if you've ever heard me talk about the parent company, which I guess is InBev Budweiser, if there's one quality I've always given them, they've been able to brew in all their products beer that's consistently the same. So they are very good at that, and obviously they can do good seltzer where you can't taste the alcohol at all. I mean, really, it's amazing.
Right, and to me, that's really impressive. They say a light lager is the hardest style to brew because it's very light. There's not anything that could mask any off flavors. I don't know exactly what goes into making a seltzer, but I would imagine it would be very difficult. Very little room for error because of how light it is. If there was anything off with it, it would be really obvious, and just magnified, because there's not anything there to cover up any imperfections with a product like this. So I think they hit it out of the ballpark with this one. I've had the Bud Light one. I think that one's excellent as well. I've had I think Natural Light does a really good one. It's funny, InBev makes most of the seltzer products that are widely distributed. They have the Bud Light line. They have a new Bud Light Platinum line of seltzers that are 8%. I know William Kepley got some of those. I haven't seen them yet here, but they exist. You have the Corona seltzers, which is, Grupo Modelo, which is ultimately run by InBev here in the United States. You have the Natural Light seltzers. And I believe there's one other one that's made by InBev. But anyway, they have a ton of different seltzer products alone. And Eclipse Brewing, he is, the home brewer there, talking about the brewing process. And he says, correct, nothing to hide behind the fermentation. It has to be perfectly controlled. Otherwise, it would be, you would have some off flavors. So, it's very impressive that they've done as good of a job with these products as they have, because you can't even tell they're alcoholic beverages, at least these two that we're drinking right now. Some of them are not as well produced, but these two are really well done. I'll go ahead and rate mine. I'm just going to give it a 93. The only reason it doesn't get like a 95 is because I think that the Natural Light ones are a little bit better. And really, I don't want to go above a 95 anyway for a seltzer. So I'm going to go with a 93 for this one. It's in the A range. It's not something that I would buy a lot of and drink all the time, but I definitely get the appeal with it. I understand that there's a lot of people out there that like light products, and this would be a great alternative to a light beer because a lot of people don't like the taste of beer. And if they want to get their alcohol some other way without making a cocktail and using liquor, this would be a great drink.
I'm going to give mine a 92. Now, it's not nitpicking. It's just that, it's for what it's doing a good job. I guess I don't want to give it higher than an A. A 92 for me is like my lowest A kind of thing. And it's possible that you could have one that's better than this, which I haven't yet tried. So, but it's look, I went to somebody's house and they didn't have any beer and they didn't have any wine and all they had was hard seltzer. It's not that I wouldn't be willing to accept that as a beverage to try. And I'd like to try other ones. I just don't feel like buying 6-packs or 12-packs because it's just not in my wheelhouse personally. And it's funny, Audrey does not drink seltzer. She doesn't like the carbonation. So she wouldn't go for anything like this.
Oh, okay.
She just doesn't. She drinks wine, which of course it's funny. She likes sparkling wine, so that kind of carbonation she likes, but she doesn't like the carbonation in carbonated, water like seltzer. But I have always liked seltzer. I find it to be refreshing, and this is something that I'm not going to seek it out, but it's something which I'm happy I tried. And again, thank you, Five Borough Phil, for leaving it for me because obviously he wasn't going to drink it. He's not a seltzer drinker. Somebody must have given it to him. He wouldn't have bought it. So somebody.
And this is not something we would have ever been able to do if this was not something that was left for you because you would never go out and purchase something like this, correct?
Right. So I probably would not. So this turns out to be, I guess, what do you call it? Like kind of like a deja vu kind of event that it just happened and it was able to do it and that's a positive thing, I guess. Phil is famous for his drinking of Coors Light. And what's Jimmy Buffett's beer? The beer, the Margaritaville beer.
Oh, Land Shark.
Land Shark. Land Shark is what he goes to when he's tired of Coors Light. He'll have a Land Shark. And again, I'm not kind of dissing Phil. If that's where Phil is, I gave him a Spanish beer called Macau. And I said, Phil, this is kind of similar to what you're drinking in that it's, a Euro type lager, and it may be a little bit heavier than the Land Shark, but you might like it. He hated it. It was just too complex. I guess, it's just that little extra step more complex than the Land Shark. And look, people who like what they like, fine. There's nothing wrong. When we do the beer tastings and he's there, we always offer him. And he goes, ick. He's not into trying. And a stout, he looks at it and it looks like crazy to him. He just doesn't understand it. He looks at it, forget it. But
a lot of people are like that. Jay talks about this a lot. Like he has neighbors that are always out in the garage working on their car, making all this, racket, and all they drink is Bud Light, and he's tried to introduce them to craft beer and they're not into it. And honestly, I think people that only drink light beer like that, I think they don't like the taste of beer. That's why light beer is appealing to them because there's not really a lot there. You start throwing in, even something like a good introduction to crafty beer would be to like maybe give them a Boston lager, like a Sam Adams Boston lager, because that's got a nice hop backbone. It's got a lot more malt character than a Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Light, something like that. And if they don't like a Boston lager, chances are they're not going to like other craft beer, and they just have to go back to their Bud Light, But
or maybe they'll go crazy and have a Rolling Rock or some of the other macro types,
which are very, very light and watery as well. So if you that would be a lateral move from Bud Light, but so that might be something they would be able to.
They're not ready to take the big step into anything different and whatever. I'm finding too, and this has just come up, I think, mainly because when I buy these mystery 12-packs at the co-op, it seems like the back six, the bottom half, always contains different stuff, which I definitely wouldn't buy. But again, at 85 cents each, I can't complain. And it's a lot of corn kind of adjunct lagers, which is something I'm not thrilled with, but I'll still drink them.
Right.
There was one from, what was the one I did? Well, it's in here so I can look it up fast. It's funny. It's from Lion's Head Brewery in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It's called Lion's Head Pilsner. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'm sure it doesn't have national distribution. Anyway, it's interesting because the Lion's Head Brewery is where 6 Point had their first operation, where they, their first brewer, their first, and it was for years. They did it, maybe 7, 8 years they brewed there. Now they were out of Memphis. Now I think they're brewing in those other 2 breweries of Victory and Southern Tier. And they brew locally here, just in Red Hook, Brooklyn, on a small, limited amount for just the local distribution. But the national distribution, I think, is now coming out of either Victory or Southern Tier or both, their extra brewing capacity. But I'm not the kind of person who really likes these corn adjunct products. It's just almost like, if you're going to ask me straight up, I prefer the German method where you cannot have that type adjunct in a lager. Now, obviously, in some of the stouts we have, there are adjuncts in those, but again, it's different because when you're amping up the ABV, I'm willing to accept it. But if you're giving me a 4.5% or a 5% lager, I don't want corn to be the main driving force. That's just me. Maybe there are people who like the corn taste.
I see. I'm a little bit more favorable towards it than you are, just because I do enjoy malt liquors, and they are very corn oriented, especially the high gravity ones. Have you ever had the Founder's Solid Gold?
I don't think so. Is it good?
That you would really like. Obviously, it's Founders, so it's other than the Mango Magnifico, which you had a bad experience with. I'm sure you would agree, Founders makes some really good beers. It's one of the best adjunct lagers really out there, especially for craft beer lovers. They do a really good job with it, and they, of course, they're all about the corn. Like they on the label, it's like, we put the golden maize, and it's all this stuff, fancy terminology. It's a corn adjunct lager from Founders. It's got a nice hop profile, and it's got a lot of flavor. It's really good. So if you ever get a chance, you should try the Solid Gold.
But I do like malt forward beers, though. Like, for instance, and lately, because I bought these, my daughter bought them for me at Costco, Spaten and Paulaner both had Doppelbocks in theirs. One's called Optimator and the other's called Salvatore. And both of those are complex Doppelbocks, around 8%. I think 1.76 and 1.79. Those are all completely malt front. Now, the difference is, because there's not a corn adjunct, it's regular, just malts they use, it's intensely malty without that grainy kind of corn. Now, I'll have to try the Founders one. Maybe they cover the graininess. I find in a lot of the other corn forward macros, it tastes just like corn grain. And I don't drink beer for the grain. I'm drinking it for the taste. I guess it's a taste I don't like, maybe. The corn.
It's interesting too, because the adjuncts, rice and corn in particular, with a lot of these macro beers, they use it in the brewing process to kind of lighten it up. It's not supposed to actually impart any flavor to the beer, but we all know that it does. I
can taste it right away. If you give me a corn adjunct and a beer, you don't tell me what it is, right away when I taste it, I can tell you there's corn in it.
Right.
And some are worse than others. Some can be really bad. This one from Pennsylvania, this one I'm talking about, this Pilsner, was not, I gave it, a 78, which is, what would you say, C+? What was 78 on your scale? So that's not horrible, but it's not great. Some of these Spanish ones, which are more Euro lagers, I were able to make it into the 80s and be B-. Mahu is one. That other one you saw, Alhambra, 1925, we did on one of those. So those were like B-. They were a little bit better. But I'm not a huge fan of Euro lagers either. They tend to just not be, they don't pack enough for me. Carlsberg, which Eric likes, maybe that to me is a B, but it depends. It's not much better than that. I like their Elephant, by the way.
I was going to say, I haven't had the regular Carlsberg lager, but I have had the Carlsberg Elephant, which I believe is 7.2 It's a higher alcohol, and it's really good.
That a 90. I think I gave that a 90. I thought that was like an A minus. I thought that was really very good. But again, it's almost like when we're doing these ratings and you're actually comparing and coming up with numbers, sometimes the variables are so tight. You know, we discuss at the top level at world class, but there's a tight thing at A minus to B plus, and in between, you know, if it's 89 or is it 91, and where you reach, you know, where you separate all that out.
Well, yeah, and style has a lot to do with it too. For example, the seltzer here today, it got a 93 out of 100, which is an A for me, just into that solid A range. But I've had a lot of stouts that I've given a 93, and 10 times out of 10, I would rather have the 93 stout than a 93 seltzer.
Yeah, we're rating these just on their seltzer value. We're trying to be totally fair, and I can't. As much as I'm not thrilled with InBev as a company because they buy up all these craft beer companies, and I'm not saying that it drops or whatever, but if nothing else, maybe they get better distribution. But it's almost like what they've decided is if we can't beat you straight, then we'll buy you out so you're not competitive with us anymore, which there's nothing wrong with, I guess. You know, it's free business, and if the person wants to sell to you, that's, you know, it's a free country and they can do it. And I think I mentioned this to you and to everybody else also, if I have to choose between an InBev product or a straight craft beer company who's independent and everything else is even, I'm going to go with the independent person. If it's close, I'm going to still go with the independent person. Now, if the InBev product is half as expensive, or it's something that I've dealt with before, they like Elysian, I used to like even before they were bought out. If I see an Elysian product that's competitively priced, I'll still buy it. It's not like because InBev I won't buy. There are people who, once InBev buys them, they'll have nothing to do with that beer anymore. They just stop buying it, you know, whatever. But why should you do that? If you like the beer and there's still quality, why would you just give up on it?
Right. Absolutely. And I'm kind of like you. I really don't. I guess if when it comes down to brass tacks, you're talking about macro versus craft. I would rather spend my money on craft beer to support, especially around here. There's a lot of really good local craft breweries that anytime they come out with their seasonal stuff, anything, I'm looking to buy it. And yes, I do spend a little bit more money on local craft beer, and I feel a little bit more at ease spending money on craft beer than I do on macro stuff, except maybe like Bourbon County Stout, which is technically InBev, but that's kind of, they leave that alone. They don't really InBev doesn't mess with that. That's still Chicago brewed and stored and barrel aged and all that. So I'm okay with that. Really quick, I wanted to, Julie's in the chat. Cheers to you. Thanks for stopping by. We got Jamie. I haven't seen Jamie in forever. Hope you're doing well. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, like I would much rather spend my money on craft beer just because it's supporting, especially, you know, the Georgia craft beers, because it's supporting local business. So
if I could get Genesee Cream Ale here, I would buy a 12 pack anytime. Problem is, all I can get is Jenny and Jenny Light, and the distributor, for whatever reason, those are the only two things they handle in New York City. I've asked, I've written, whatever, and they say it's a distributor problem. It's not our problem. We'll ship them as much of the Jenny Cream Ale as they want. They don't want to carry. Now that could mean it's been tried years ago and didn't sell. I don't have a reason, but I would buy that. I think that's one of the better cream ales that's out here, and it's usually very reasonably priced too.
It's very reasonably priced here too. The problem is I only see all the Genesee products here are only available in the 30 packs now. And yeah, it's $12 or $13.99 for a 30 pack, which is an excellent value. But I don't want to commit to that many Genesee beers.
I know. I would not buy a 30 pack. I don't care how much it costs. I would not buy a 30 pack. Because what do you? I mean, if I'm going to buy it, then I'm going to be giving it out to my friends. Say you try it, and that's it. And if I'm going to do that, but you know, maybe I don't have 30 friends to give beers to, so you know, whatever. Right. But a 6-pack or a 12-pack, I would definitely buy. And it seems like, you know, you mentioned these seltzers now. Utica Club, which owns Saranac in Utica, New York, also has a seltzer line. So does Genesee. So it seems like every company Yingling has it too. So all these companies have seltzers as well that they're pushing. And they used to make soda during Prohibition.
Jamie was asking what we were drinking this morning. We're drinking seltzers, Jamie. Michael Kormaroff got a seltzer. He didn't buy it. Somebody gave him a seltzer. So we decided to do this, just kind of spur of the moment thing. And they're pretty good. We both think they're good for what they are, not something that we would necessarily go out and buy all the time or ever in Michael's case, but not a bad product for what you're. I mean, it is as advertised. It's an alcoholic seltzer. It just tastes like seltzer water.
Right. And maybe this is something also that appeals more to women than men, who, if they're also into seltzer, because it's pretty easy going and they don't taste the alcohol. And a lot of times you'll get that from females, that the alcohol taste is too strong and they don't like that alcohol taste. And in this, it's so well masked. If you actually gave somebody this, unless they really were attuned to alcohol, and some people do have, they can feel alcohol. You couldn't tell that there's alcohol in this. That's how I'm reading it anyway.
Yeah, we've got, speaking of women, we've got 3 women in the chat this morning. So this is obviously, I don't know if it's because they're into seltzers more, but I'm curious. You ladies in the chat, we got Angela, we got Jules, we got Jamie, we got Nina, we got 4 actually. So have you guys had seltzers, and what do you think of them? Do you like them? Is it something that you buy often? Is it like your new favorite thing? Jamie's talking, as a matter of fact, Jamie just mentioned she's never seen the Coors one. Okay, White Claw is actually her favorite. I'm not a fan of the White Claw, but I thought it had a weird chalky taste to it. But I do like the Bud Light, and of course I like the Coors. Natural Light is good as well. I haven't had the Corona ones yet.
I'll have to try the White Claw if somebody will offer me one, or at least to try some. Nina says women buy whiskey.
Buy whiskey. Ronnie S. is in the chat as well. Cheers, John and Mike. Cheers to you, Ronnie S.
Hey, Ronnie.
I know Ronnie likes some seltzers. He's had some seltzers hanging out with us before. But yeah, I'm interested. Is it more? What do you guys think? You think it's more for women, or do you think it's kind of like mass appeal? Well, I think a lot of light beer. I think it's going to be hard to convert a lot of light beer drinkers, particularly men that are, Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light. I think it's going to be tough to get them into something like this because it's so different. But at the same time, if you like regular seltzer, I don't see why you wouldn't like this because it's spot on with the flavor profile.
I saw at the beach club the paddleball players, a lot of them who were really not big time beer drinkers. They were more possibly wine drinkers or maybe liquor drinkers, like this after they played, because you could have a can of seltzer, get a little bit of, the 5%. It's not 112-ounce, 5% is not going to really get to you. So you could have a couple of these with no problem, and it goes down easy and it tastes like regular seltzer. So it seemed like those were people at the beach club who were drinking it. I always saw it around the cabana, people going with 6-packs, with the 6-pack, the plastic holders that you put these in when you get them. They'd walk around with cold ones and give it out to their friends. And that's probably how Phil got this. Somebody had a 6-pack. Phil, do you want one? And he probably said, okay, put it in the refrigerator, and never drank it. So good thing for me, I got to try it, which is good. And I didn't look at the date. Doesn't look like there's a date on the bottom of this, but I assume he got it this summer. It's not old or anything. Oh, it's good until November 20th. Best Buy November 20th.
Mine says April 1921, so I'm assuming that's Best Buy April 19th of 2021.
Mine would have still been good for another month till November 20th, a month and 10 days. So whatever. I assume the shelf life on these is similar to, Bud Light, regular Bud Light. About 6 months, I would guess, would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's really not anything that would go bad over, unless, you're talking maybe a year or two, but I think the shelf life on, even after maybe the Best Buy dates on the can, I don't think it would really go bad too quickly.
If you had any problem, you might have less carbonation because it's a can. So the can because I think we've talked about this too. When I've kept things longer than I wanted to, like I used to get those 6-point the limited release items, and I'd leave them in my refrigerator, and I'd forget about them or whatever. And then I'd realize that one of them is an IPA or something that I should have drank before. And for the most part, the hops actually held up fairly well. It was always a carbonation issue. So when I had it, it lost a little bit because it wasn't as well carbonated. It's like almost sitting in the can. Let's say, you figure you can keep an IPA for 6 months. So I kept it 8 or 9 months, and the hops actually held up. It tasted like it did when I first had it, but the carbonation was not as crisp, or it didn't, you look at it, and where it had been active bubble stream coming up, it was less. So it seems like you're losing the carbonation when you keep something too long. I know you don't have that problem as much as me, because you get it, you drink it. I have two different beer refrigerators. I have one over here to my right, and I have another one over there. And plus I keep some stuff upstairs too in the main refrigerator, but I keep most of my stuff in these two. And there are times I'll stick something in the back and I forget I have it, and then I'll look in there and I'll say, oh, I should drink that, because you really don't want to be drinking stuff that doesn't taste as good. If you've spent good money, or somebody's given it to you, or you've traded for it, you want to drink it. It doesn't make any sense. You don't have that problem with stouts and porters and higher alcohol things. Those hold up much longer. But IPAs and lower alcohol things, you should probably try to get to, I would say, no more than 6 months for the most part. And maybe Pilsners and lagers you can keep a little bit longer than that, because there's really less that can go wrong with them. But again, from the carbonation standpoint, if you want the ultimate, the fresher you drink, I think the better you're going to like it.
Right. Absolutely. So Jamie,
go ahead.
I was just going to show some of the comments here. Jamie says that she was a seltzer expert over the summer. Nice when it's hot out, and it doesn't really feel like you're drinking. Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely doesn't remind me of an alcoholic beverage. And Ronnie says that his family, when they get together, they actually buy more seltzers than regular beers. It's got mass appeal. Yeah, I think the mass appeal thing with stuff like this is, that's obviously what they're going for. Nina says she switches to Ultra after a few seltzers, and Ronnie says he'd rather just drink a seltzer over Mick Ultra. I think I might agree with you there, Ronnie. Mick Ultra is just about as watery of a light beer as you can get.
It's funny though. Isn't the Mick Ultra 64 calories? Isn't that their big claim?
No. They have a Miller 64. Mick Ultra is 95 calories, I believe.
Oh, so you're not really because this is 100, so you're really not saving anything by doing that.
Right.
Either.
So Mick Ultra and Coors Seltzer are pretty much the same calorie, or the same calorie content. And yes, Natty does make a seltzer. It's called Natural Light Seltzers. They have Aloha Beaches, Catalina Lime Mixer, and House Rules, which is a strawberry kiwi. And the Natural Light Seltzers are 6% alcohol, so you get a little bit more bang for your buck. And at the same time, they're cheaper because the Natural Light line is cheaper. You're not paying for that Bud Light or Coors name. Right. So you get it for a little bit cheaper, and you get more alcohol. And I think they're just as good. And yes, Drunken One, you have found the party this morning. This is where it's at, my friend.
Drunken One, we're drinking seltzer, though, not beer.
That's right, yeah. I might have to drink a beer after this just to kind of,
get yourself back into the stream
get back into the swing of things. Commerce Ozzy says he had a Coors Black Cherry Seltzer recently. It was good, especially after I added some rum.
That'll always do it.
That's a thought. You could add some liquor to the clear rum. I'm assuming you're talking about clear rum. It's very, it might add actually a little bit of sweetness, and you don't, with like Malibu, for instance, which is a clear rum, but it's flavored. Like you put a little like coconut rum in something like this.
Might be good.
Like lemon lime, like you put the lime in the coconut, coconut in the lime.
It might be good. Seltzer has always been known as a mixer. So here you'd have a mixer and you could mix it with something else, which is good.
Right. Ronnie, I have not, neither one of us have had the Bud Light Platinum seltzers. I know William Kepley has. I think I know where to get them now. They're starting to kind of show up around here, but they're 8% alcohol. That's by far the strongest seltzer. Well, I take that back. Four Loko makes a 14% seltzer, but why the hell would you want to drink a 14% seltzer? That just sounds terrible. I would be willing to try the Bud Light Platinum one because Bud Light Platinum, 6%. I think that's a great product from InBev. It's got a lot of flavor for a macro lager. It's pretty much a malt liquor. So I would definitely like to try the Bud Light Platinum seltzers, and they have unique flavors, a lot different than some of the other. Most of them have the black cherry, the lemon lime, the mango. The Bud Light Platinum flavors, much like the natural light flavors, are a lot. They're unique. They're not like all the other seltzer flavors. So I would like to try that. Yeah, I don't know. Wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, black cherry coconut. I don't know. But he said rum. I was the one that said the coconut rum. But
it could just be straight. It could just be straight,
white rum might go well with the black cherry, Ronnie. And he says Bud Light Platinum. Oh, so you've tried the Bud Light Platinum seltzers? Okay.
But he had 4 of them.
Yeah, 8%.
That would catch up with you a little bit.
Yeah, that might do it, Ronnie.
Sure.
Well, we had a lot of people turn up this morning. We appreciate all you guys tuning in. You want to go ahead and wrap it up? We've given.
Okay, we can. It's been interesting.
It's definitely been interesting. I'm kind of surprised your rating was so high, but I think to be fair to the style, it's hard to really knock the seltzers because it's exactly as marketed. You're getting that great seltzer flavor, and the alcohol's masked well, which I think is impressive on its own just because it's such a light product. But so 92 for Michael's Bud Light Black Cherry Seltzer and a 93 for the Lemon Lime Core Seltzer. We definitely think they're worth a shot, especially if you're into lighter products. And if you're not a big beer person, this will be something to try because it's just like drinking a seltzer. So thank you for joining me, Michael.
John, we'll see you again tomorrow for our exciting Stout Sunday. Almost
Stout Sunday, that's right. 10:30 Eastern tomorrow morning. Everybody tune in for that. And we will go ahead and end it there. Hope everybody has a good weekend. And until next time, everybody, cheers.